Hi, this is Chris from HITI Software. Today we are going to see how to plot and record data from your Arduino. We will also see how to import and export those data to Excel or text files. Open the chart tool and then open the chart configuration. We are going to plot data coming from our photoresistor on analog input 0. So name your chart photoresistor data. In the x-axis section, leave the sampling rate to 10 milliseconds. It means new data will be added to the chart every 10 milliseconds. Also leave the timeline set to duration so that the timeline starts at 0 seconds. And finally, for the display range during acquisition, let's only display the last 10 seconds. In the y-axis section, add the data to plot and select the analog input 0. Finally, click OK to validate. Now you can see that this indicator here has turned green, which means the chart is now configured and ready to receive data. So let's start data acquisition. Illuminate the photoresistor and change light intensity. You can see that the curve goes up or down according to the light intensity seen by the sensor. Now go back to the chart configuration and set the Y-min and Y-max values to auto by deleting their values. And click OK. Now the Y-min and Y-max values are being constantly adjusted to the min and max values of the data to display. You will notice that the chart only displays the data acquired during the last 10 seconds. This is because the display range during acquisition is limited to limit CPU usage. It depends on the amount of curves and on the selected sampling rate. To find out what is the max display range that we can have with our current settings, let's go back to the chart configuration. We can see here that it is 1 minute, so let's ask the chart to display this max display range. Okay, we do have 1 minute now. Next, during data acquisition, this indicator here is blinking red. If you stop data acquisition, you can see that the indicator turns green to indicate that acquisition is stopped, but also that the chart contains data. On the right of the indicator, the acquisition time is displayed. There is a limit on this acquisition time, and it depends on the max amount of data that the chart can acquire, which is 800 megabytes. To find out what is the max acquisition time with our current settings, go back to the chart configuration. And you can see here that it is 1 day and 20 hours. To increase this time, you will need to either decrease the number of curves or to decrease the sampling rate. For instance, by using 1 second instead of 10 milliseconds. Now that acquisition is stopped, the button Reset Zoom appears at the top right corner. If you click on it, the chart then displays all the data acquired from the beginning. You can zoom in by drag and dropping with your mouse left button. And you can also zoom in and out by using the mouse wheel. And finally, you can drag and drop with your mouse right button for panning. Next, to save your data, your first option is to save your project. Indeed, the project always includes the data from the latest acquisition performed. So to save your project, simply go back to the main window and press Ctrl S. Your second option is to save your data in a dedicated chart file. This option is interesting if you want to perform several acquisitions and to save them in different files. So let's do that. Save your data in a chart file called My Data. Now you can safely delete your data from the chart and start a new acquisition. Okay, let's stop it. If you want to open your saved file, you can directly drag and drop the file, or you can click on Open File here. Next, you can export your data to Excel, text or image files. To do that, click on Export Data and export your data to an Excel file called My Exported Data. Then you get a file which looks like this. Note that Excel files are heavier than text files, and they also have a limitation on their max number of rows. So if you have a lot of data to save, we recommend to export them to a text file. So let's do that. Export your data to a text file and call it mydata1. The content of the text file is organized as follows. The first line contains the headers, and the next lines contain the data. Each data line starts with the time and date in ISO 8601 format, followed by the values to plot. Here we only have one value to plot, which is the value of analog input 0. And to finish, every columns are separated with a tab. Next, you can import data from any text file which is formatted as explained before. Click on Import Data and select the text file we exported just before. Then choose to import the selected file only. It is also possible to import several files at the same time. They just need to be placed inside the same folder, and HITIPanel will try to parse them all. Let's show that. Delete the data and start a new acquisition. Stop the acquisition and export it to a text file called mydata2. Place this file inside the same folder as mydata1. Now click on Import Data and choose to import the file called mydata1. And this time choose to import all the files in the same folder. And that's it! We have the data from the first file at the beginning, starting at 0 second. And we have the data from the second file, acquired 2 hours later in my example. If you want to display dates in a timeline instead of durations, open the configuration and select Date. You can see that the first acquisition was done at 4 p.m. and the second acquisition at 6 p.m. By default, only the hours are shown. If you want to display the year, month and day, go back to the chart configuration and select years as the mean unit to display. This concludes this tutorial about how to plot and record data from your Arduino.